Hello everyone, this is Allison From-Tapp from Spalding University's Counseling Center. Today I wanted to make a quick video for you just to talk a little bit about meditation and mindfulness. I think meditation is one of those things that we talk about a lot in both research but also in popular media, popular culture. And I think it's something that really intimidates some of us. I know when I first started meditating, it was really intimidating because I didn't know what to do, what you were supposed to do, how it was supposed to feel, any of those sorts of things. So this is just going to be a really brief intro into sort of what meditation and mindfulness are and just how to get started with those. And then we'll have some follow-up videos, which will actually have some techniques, a lot based on breathing. So we'll really work on some breathing techniques that hopefully can be helpful once you start practicing those. So first, we hear a lot about mindfulness. So mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. I think that last part is really the hardest, that it is really hard to not judge some of the things that we are thinking or feeling in the moment that we're thinking and feeling them. But mindfulness really helps us to pay attention to this present moment because the present moment is the only one that we have. And when we really think about the past, sometimes we get stuck in more depressed or sad feelings. If we think too much about the future, and we start to get anxious about that, and that doesn't really feel good either. So there are definitely ways to think about the past and ways to think about the future, but we just don't want those to end up feeling worse than you're feeling. So mindfulness really keeps us really targeted on this present moment. When we think about meditation, meditation is really just a way to practice mindfulness. Now, there are lots and lots of different sorts of meditations, lots of different traditions that practice meditation in different ways. And so some of them are a little more strict than others. Some of them have specific ways that you want your posture to be, specific ways to be seated. We're not going to go into those right now because research would say that just practicing general mindful meditation once a day, even several times a week, that just that can be really beneficial for lots of things. And we can talk more about that later as well. So the basics. So if you're thinking about starting a meditative practice, there's some basic things that you want to think about. One is your posture. So really you can have any kind of posture you want. So the typical meditative posture is typically a seated position, but it may depend on which meditation you're doing. There's some like a body scan where it's actually better to lie down sometimes, especially if you're going to do that right before bed. But for most meditation, you're going to be seated. Now, you can be seated in a chair, on a couch, on the floor, whatever is most comfortable for you. I would say right now I'm seated in a chair. If you are seated in the chair, it is best really to feel grounded, to have both feet on the floor. So you don't want to have your legs crossed for this. You want to be able to feel your feet on the floor. So you have your feet on the floor and then you usually just place your hands just on your legs in your lap. You do not have to have your hands like this. You do not have to have your hands in any specific way. Just make sure that your hands can feel your lap, your legs, wherever they are. Now, if you're seated on the floor or maybe on a meditation cushion, then you might have your legs crossed in some kind of way. Any which way is comfortable enough for you is just perfect. And again, you'll have your hands just in your lap. Now, once you are seated, when we think about meditation, we think about a kind of regal sort of posture. And so what you want to do is to be able to sit up straight, but not in such a way that your back is going to be hurting after a minute or it's going to be distracting. So what I like to do is to think about there being a balloon attached to your head. And so think about that little string right here on that balloon. And it's got some helium and it's just sort of pulling you straight up. And so when you think about that and you visualize that balloon, you kind of visualize your head just being a little more straight. Really the best thing is you want your head balanced over your shoulders and your shoulders balanced over your hips. So you figure out what that is. And that might mean that you kind of do some rocking as you're getting into that seated position. So you sit down, you kind of wiggle around a little bit until you get into a posture that feels really balanced. And you can tell if you're too far back, that's not going to feel balanced. If you're too far forward, it's also not going to feel balanced. But it's really completely up to you. No one else can tell you what is balanced for you. So you find that kind of balanced position. whether you are sitting in a chair, a couch, or whatever, or on the floor, or on a bed, on a cushion, whatever it is, you find what feels most balanced for you. Then you're ready to start meditating. And so some people will say to close your eyes. Usually when I'm doing a meditation, when I'm leading someone, I will invite you to close your eyes. You absolutely do not have to close your eyes. So people who have been meditating for years actually usually leave their eyes open and they're able to meditate in that way. For myself, I've been meditating on and off for probably 15 to 20 years. I still prefer having my eyes closed most of the time in most meditations because it helps me stay really grounded in my body. If my eyes are open, I can feel a little distracted by things. Sometimes if I'm out in nature, I just glanced out my window, because if I'm outside and I'm in the woods, then I'm more likely to meditate with my eyes open, but usually I leave them closed. What I invite people to do is to either close them or look down toward the ground. And so that way you don't have all the stimuli that's in front of you here. And so you can kind of pick a point on the floor to look down, because not everyone is going to be comfortable closing their eyes. And that is absolutely okay. Again, with meditation, you don't want to do something that is going to make you emotionally uncomfortable in that way. So you get in that position, you close your eyes, or you just gaze at the floor, and then you're ready to go. So those are the basics about how to get started. Now, I will go through a really brief breathing exercise now, and then in our next video, we'll get more into some of those things as well. Some of the breathing exercises we'll do, they come from lots of different traditions. Some of them I've learned from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who took a lot of things that he learned from a more Eastern practice and brought them to Westerners in lots of different ways. So I get a lot of stuff from him. I've been to lots of different trainings on mindfulness and meditation, so it kind of comes from everywhere. I recently took a Koru meditation course, and so a lot of these will come from that as well. So the first breathing practice is just belly breathing. Now this one is great for all ages. And what you're going to do is you'll start with putting your hands on your belly around where your diaphragm is. So your diaphragm is really at just at the base of your rib cage. And so if you put your hands there on your belly, when you take a deep breath, a lot of us tend to breathe more from our chest, and you'll see your kind of shoulders go up. That does not usually get you as much oxygen as you want, and it tends to be a more shallow breath. So if you can really breathe from your diaphragm, that's going to get you all of that rich oxygen that our blood really needs. Another way to do this is if you'd like to lay down. Sometimes you can actually feel that better. With kids, we do the same one where we take a stuffed animal and we actually lay that on their belly. And then when they're breathing, they actually watch the animal go up and down, which is a really nice way of teaching them. It's a great way of teaching adults as well. So if you don't have a stuffed animal around, you can pick up a pillow or anything light. And just if you're laying on the ground, put that on your belly. And then you will notice that going up and down. So for this one, go ahead, and if you're laying down, lay down. If you're seated, be seated. Get comfortable. Again, I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, and I'm going to close mine too. And then just notice your breathing. Right now, there's no reason to change it or to judge it. Just notice how your breathing is. Is it fast or slow? Is it deep or shallow? Just notice what it's doing. And as you notice, start to be aware of the place that you feel that breath coming in. And then notice if you can really feel it in your diaphragm, in your belly. See if you can direct your air deep in your belly. And on that next in-breath, allow your belly to really expand. And on the out-breath, it goes back in. Breathing in, your belly goes out. And breathing out, it goes back in. Try 3 more breaths on your own and just notice. When you breathe in, your belly goes out or up. And when you breathe out, it goes back in. Good. And now I would invite you to open your eyes again. So that was a really simple, really easy sort of belly breath awareness that you can take anywhere with you. You can do that anytime you feel stressed, anytime you need to relax a little more. It's something that's really good to practice because it slows you down a little bit. And what we have found is that the more that you practice meditation, the more you practice this kind of deep breathing, number one, the better I think you're going to feel based on everything we know and research, but also the easier it's going to be to do and the better it's going to work for you in the long run. If you just try it when you're stressed, it's probably not going to work as well. What we know about our brain is that it is a muscle just like the rest of our muscles in that we have to practice the things that go on in our brain. If we don't practice them, then they don't stick as well. Just like going to work out. If you go and lift weights today, you're not going to really be that much stronger tomorrow. You're not going to notice a difference in your muscle tone or your muscle volume after a day of working out. But after a month of doing it every other day or so, you're going to notice changes. It's the same thing with meditation. The more you do it, the more you'll notice those changes and the more it will be beneficial. So I want to give you one more brief thing about meditation. A lot of times in a meditation, if you're being guided by someone, there will be pauses. And I know some people feel really anxious in some of those pauses, like you're sitting there with your eyes closed going, did they stop talking? Did the video stop working? What's going on? So a lot of times people will pause in meditations. Some people do a fully guided meditation with hardly any sort of silence in there, which is fine too. And if that works better for you, absolutely do that. But a lot of people do like a lot of silence in their meditations. And so in some of the meditation videos that I have coming up, some will have more guided practice and some will have more periods of silence. So that is okay, and you'll get used to that. Some people also practice with a bell or a singing bowl. So maybe in my next video, I will bring my bell and we will practice with that. A lot of times we'll start with the bell and then you will know it's the end of the meditation because we will end with a bell. I tend to end with 3 chimes of the bell. Other people do it only once. Again, that's a personal preference. So those are some of the basics. I hope you have a wonderful day and I hope you come back for our next video. Thanks.